Okay, wir sind jetzt an der Ecke von der Elisabethstraße und der... Oh, wie heißt dann die Straße? Na, grüß Gott, hallo, ich bin Billy Berger und das ist Bausteine 2. Die 12. Woche bricht an und so ist das Ende des Semesters in Sicht. Herzlich willkommen. Diese Woche geht es um die Stadt. Wenn wir an Deutschland denken, denken wir vielleicht an Großstädte wie Berlin, München, Köln und so weiter. Es kann natürlich teuer sein, in einer Großstadt zu wohnen, besonders wenn man studiert und wenn man nicht so viel Geld hat. Diese Woche wollen wir wissen, wie man in einer Stadt zurechtkommt und was es kostet, dort zu wohnen. Ja, das interessiert uns in der 12. Woche. Okay, so this is week 12 and the end of the semester is right around the corner. Our topic for this week is the city life, living in the city, finding our way around the city. So let's take a look at what's happening this week in just a little more detail. In our very first study session of the week, well, we're going to be reading about a family in Austria. Now, this family has just moved from the country into the city, into Vienna, or of course into Wien, as it's called in German. Now, they move into a flat in a really cool area of the city, in the Neubaugasse. It's close to the Maria-Hilfer-Straße and pretty close to the Westbahnhof, one of the big train stations in Vienna. And right from the beginning, the family has, well, shall we say, just a little bit of trouble finding their way around. And so we encounter some phrases that we can use ourselves when talking about how to get from one place to the next, or perhaps more accurately, how not to get from one place to the next. So look, it's all really useful stuff, and you'll get a chance to talk about your own city, what you like about it, and what you don't, and that sort of thing. In our second study session, we are going to be doing a couple of things. It is mostly related to sneaky ways of using verbs. The main thing we're going to be learning is how to ask for directions, how to give directions, and basically, I guess, how to find your way around the city or the place where you live. This is going to be really useful if you yourself are in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, or if maybe, like me, you live somewhere where German tourists always seem to get lost and you need to give them directions to the botanical gardens. And because it's something really useful, it's also something that has a better than fair chance of turning up in the exam. So if you were just thinking, look, I might just fast forward through this a little bit, I suggest maybe you just keep listening, yeah? Now, the good news here is that we are going to be recycling some structures that we've learned in previous weeks. First of all, I want us to think about how we use verbs. We talk a lot about verbs, but how we talk about verbs to describe how we get places. In English, we often use the verb to go, regardless of the means of transport. In German, we know that ich gehe in die Stadt means that, well, you're going to walk there. If you want to drive, then you're going to have to use a different verb, like fahren, and say, ich fahre in die Stadt. If you want to maybe use a bus or a taxi or some other means of getting there that doesn't actually involve you driving there yourself, then you'll use a nice prepositional phrase to get the idea across. And we're familiar with this already. Ich fahre mit dem Bus in die Stadt. Ich fahre mit dem Taxi in die Stadt. So that's the first thing you'll need to remember. The next is, well, our separable verbs and how they work. Now, I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, a lot of people not using these properly. So I really encourage you to review these. We're going to be using them to help us to give some directions. And as you'll see in a moment, we're going to use verbs like hinuntergehen and hinaufgehen, separable verbs. Now, linked to this too are those fancy hin und her prefixes that we have worked on recently as well as part of these separable verbs. Anyway, so look, here's what I want us to be able to do. I want us to be able to talk about whether we're going up the road or down the road. Which direction do we go in? I want us to be able to say whether you are just going to keep going straight ahead or whether you have to maybe turn left or right. Are you going to be able to talk about things that you see or pass on the way? That's going to be pretty useful. Are you going to be able to tell us whether you have to go through something like, I don't know, maybe a park or a mall or something like that? Okay, well, look, let's see some of that in action. So right now, we're going to head out into the Hobart City Centre and see if we can find our way around. And yes, here we are, like magic, somewhere in the Elizabeth Street. And there I am over the other side of the road looking for Maya.
Okay, wir sind jetzt in der Elisabethstraße. Jetzt ist aber die Frage, gehen wir hinauf oder gehen wir hinunter? Ich glaube, wir gehen die Elisabethstraße hinunter. Links ist jetzt das Studentenwohnheim, also wir sind auf dem richtigen Weg. Das ist jetzt die Bathurststraße, wir gehen über die Straße. Und jetzt gehen wir einfach nur geradeaus. Wir sind jetzt an der Ecke von der Elisabethstraße und der Liverpoolstraße. Das ist die Fußgängerzone. Wir gehen jetzt nach rechts. Okay, und jetzt auf der anderen Straßenseite sehen wir das Meier-Gebäude. Gehen wir jetzt rüber. Wir sind da.
So in our second study session, that's what we're going to be practicing. All pretty useful stuff, so make sure you do get some practice with this. In our third study session, we're going to be thinking about money, Geld. We'll learn about the Germans' relationship to money, how much they get, how much they earn, how important it is to them, and that sort of thing. We'll meet some people who don't have a whole lot of money.
Es gibt in Deutschland viele Menschen, die nicht genug Geld haben, gerade wenn man
And some others who do some volunteer work to help them out. And then in our fourth and final study session, we are going to be learning an easy way to use prepositions with verbs so that we don't have to think too much about cases, don't have to think too much whether it's die, der, das, dem, des, and all of those other crazy forms, yeah? These are our da compounds, which are a little bit more useful, I must say, than they sound. Also ich wünsche Ihnen viel Spaß dabei, viel Erfolg damit und außerdem hoffe ich, Sie genießen die Woche. Und wenn Sie Fragen haben, Sie wissen, was Sie tun müssen, melden Sie sich. So, I hope you have a great week and if you have any questions, get in touch. Das war's. Alles Gute. Tschüss.
Und tschüss.
Das war's, alles Gute und tschüss. Entschuldigung.